My sister looked me dead in the eye at a backyard barbecue in front of 30 people and said, "A good uncle doesn't ask for receipts." She smiled when she said it. That smile. I had been waiting 6 months for that exact moment, and I had a blue folder in my bag that was going to end it permanently. Let me take you back to the beginning, because this story does not start with the money. It starts with the kids. I have 2 nieces, Maya, who was 9 at the time this whole thing started, and little Petra, who had just turned 6. I am their uncle. I'm also childless, single, and by most family standards, the person most likely to be generous at Christmas and available on a Tuesday afternoon. I knew what I was when I took that role on. I was the fun uncle, the one who shows up with the good snacks and stays too late and lets them watch one more episode. I was fine with that. More than fine. Those 2 kids were the best thing in my life for years. Their mother is my sister, Sandra, 3 years older than me, married to a guy named Dirk, who is not a bad person but has the financial discipline of a golden retriever near an open trash can. They struggled. I knew they struggled. And because I loved those kids, I helped. The first time Sandra called me asking for money was in February, 2.5 years before the barbecue. It was a Sunday morning. I was sitting at my kitchen table with coffee, the good kind I grind myself, reading something on my phone. She called instead of texting, which already felt significant. Sandra almost never called. She said Maya needed school supplies for a project, something about a science fair. The teacher had sent home a list, and the materials were not cheap. She said she was embarrassed to ask, but she did not know who else to call. She mentioned Petra in the same sentence, something about Petra's shoes being too small and the weather turning cold. I said yes immediately. Of course I did. I transferred €200 before we even finished the call. She thanked me. She said the kids would thank me too. She said I was the best brother in the world. I felt good about it. That is the part I want you to understand. I felt genuinely good. I was not doing it to be thanked. I was doing it because I imagined Maya presenting her science project with the right materials, and Petra wearing warm shoes that fit, and that image was enough for me. I did not ask for receipts. Why would I? She was my sister. The second call came 6 weeks later. This time it was for a school trip. Maya's class was going somewhere, a museum or a nature centre, I do not remember exactly. The fee was €90. Sandra said she had an unexpected car expense. The timing was terrible. She sounded stressed. I transferred the €90. The third call came 3 weeks after that. Petra needed a dentist appointment, and their insurance had a gap. €140. I want to be honest with you. At this point, I still was not suspicious. I was a little tired of the frequency, but I was not suspicious. I just thought they were having a rough stretch. The fourth call is where something shifted in my chest. Not suspicion exactly. More like a small, quiet question that I did not yet know how to ask out loud. Sandra called on a Thursday evening. I had just gotten home from work. I was still in my coat. She said Petra's school had a mandatory sports day coming up, and the kids needed specific shoes for it. Not regular sneakers, specific shoes. She said the school had sent a note. She said Petra had been upset because some of the other kids already had theirs. I said, sure. I asked how much. She said around €80 should cover it. I transferred the money, but this time on Friday, I sent Petra a voice message on the family chat. Just a normal one. I said, "Hey little bug, I heard you are getting new sports shoes. I hope they are the good ones with the Velcro because you always untie the laces in about 4 seconds. It was a joke, a normal uncle joke. Petra sent back a voice message the next morning. She said, in that slightly confused 6-year-old way, that she did not have new shoes. She said her shoes were fine. She said she was wearing the ones Grandma got her. I listened to that message 3 times. I did not confront Sandra. I did not say anything. I just sat with that message, and I thought about the science fair supplies I had never seen in any photo. I thought about the school trip Maya had never mentioned in any of our conversations. I thought about the dentist appointment I had taken on faith. And I started keeping records. This was not a dramatic decision. I did not sit down and say, I am now building a case against my sister. It was quieter than that. I just started saving things. I saved every transfer confirmation. I saved every message Sandra sent me asking for money. I started paying more attention to what the kids actually said. Maya was 9 and old enough to talk about her week in real detail. I started calling her more often, not interrogating her, just talking, asking about school, asking what she had been doing, asking the kind of questions an involved uncle asks. And I listened carefully to what she said and what she did not say. Over the next 4 months, I collected a picture that was very different from the one Sandra had been painting. The science fair project Sandra had called about in February. Maya had done it with materials the school provided. Her teacher had confirmed in a note sent home that all materials would be supplied. I found this out because Maya mentioned it casually while telling me about winning second place. She was proud. I was proud. And I was also doing math in my head. The school trip? I asked Maya about it in a roundabout way, mentioning that I remembered she'd gone somewhere in the spring. She said yes, they'd gone to a nature preserve. She said the fee had been covered by a school subsidy program because several families in the class had applied. She said it was free for almost everyone. The dentist appointment? I could not verify that one directly, but I noticed that when I asked Petra about going to the dentist, she said she had not been since the summer before, which was before the call Sandra made about the insurance gap. The sports shoes? I already knew about that one. I want to tell you what this felt like, because I think it matters. It did not feel like anger. Not at first. It felt like grief. It felt like something I had trusted completely was dissolving, and underneath it, there was nothing solid. I had been giving money that I believed was going to those kids. I had pictured Maya in her sports shoes. I had pictured Petra at the dentist. And none of that had happened. The money had gone somewhere, just not there. I kept my voice completely normal in every conversation with Sandra. This was harder than it sounds. She called twice more in those 4 months. Once for what she said were school registration fees for the new year. Once for what she said were winter clothes for both girls. I transferred the money both times. I know how that sounds. But I needed her to keep going. I needed the pattern to be undeniable. And I needed the kids to be okay in the meantime. So I started doing something else. I started sending things directly. I did not announce it. I did not tell Sandra. I just started ordering things and having them delivered to the house. Books Maya had mentioned wanting. Art supplies Petra had asked about once in a voice message. A warm jacket in Petra's size that I picked out myself, based on a photo from a family chat. I sent them with notes addressed to the kids, not to Sandra. Sandra called me after the jacket arrived. Her voice was bright, almost too bright. She said the girls loved it. They were so excited. I was so thoughtful. She did not say anything about the fact that I had sent it directly, but I noticed she did not say thank you for the jacket, in the same way she said thank you for the money. The money thank yous always had a slightly breathless quality, a little too warm, a little too effusive. The jacket thank you was flatter, controlled. She knew I was watching. She just did not know how closely. The folder I mentioned, the one in my bag at the barbecue, I started building it in earnest about 2 months before the event. I printed out every bank transfer. I printed out the school's supply list for Maya's class, which I found on the school's public website, clearly showing that materials were provided. I printed a copy of the subsidy program information for the school trip, also publicly available. I printed out Petra's voice message transcript, which I had typed out myself. I saved screenshots of every relevant conversation. I had a note from Maya's teacher, which I had gotten by simply emailing the school as her uncle, asking about an upcoming project, and receiving a reply that clarified the supply situation. I also had something I had not expected to find. About 3 weeks before the barbecue, Petra sent me a voice message that she clearly had not meant to send. It was short. She was talking to someone in the background, probably Maya, and she said in her small, serious voice that she wished Uncle Marcus would come visit, because Mama said he was busy, but she did not think he was actually busy. She thought Mama just did not want him to come. That message, that one small message, I had to sit down when I heard it. Not because it surprised me, because it confirmed the thing I had been most afraid to name. Sandra was not just taking money from me. She was managing my access to those kids. She was keeping me at a distance, keeping the relationship mediated through her, keeping me in the position of the generous uncle who sends money and does not visit, does not see, does not ask questions. Because questions were dangerous to her. I saved that message. I added it to the folder. The blue folder now had 11 transfer printouts, a school supply list with one line highlighted, a subsidy program summary, a transcript of a 6-year-old saying her shoes were fine, and a transcript of that accidental voice message. It was not dramatic to look at. It was just paper. But it was the whole story, laid flat. The barbecue was my parents' annual summer gathering. My parents have a house with a big garden, and every July they invite the whole family, aunts and uncles and cousins and neighbours, who have become family over 30 years. It is loud and warm, and there is always too much food, and my father burns something on the grill at least once and pretends it was intentional. I love it. I had been going every year since I was a child. Sandra always came with Dirk and the girls. This year was no different. I arrived early to help set up. Maya ran to me the second she saw me coming through the garden gate. She was taller. I noticed that immediately. She was taller and she had her hair in 2 braids, and she ran across the grass and hit me at waist height, and I caught her and lifted her, and she laughed, and I thought, these kids are everything. Petra came more slowly, the way she always did, watching to make sure the reunion was real before committing to it. And she came at a full run and grabbed my leg, and I crouched down and hugged her properly, and she smelled like sunscreen and grass. Sandra watched from across the garden. She was holding a glass of something cold. She smiled. The smile was the one I had learned to read over the past 6 months. Slightly too wide, eyes not quite matching the mouth. The smile of someone who is calculating something. She came over and hugged me. She said it was so good to see me. She said the girls had missed me. She said I should come around more often. I said I had been thinking the same thing. The afternoon moved the way those afternoons always do. Food appeared in stages. The cousins chased each other through the garden. My father burned 2 sausages and announced they were smoky flavour. My mother made her potato salad that everyone pretends they do not want and then eats entirely. I sat with the kids for a long time, playing a card game Maya had invented with rules that changed every 3 minutes in her favour. About 2 hours in, I was sitting with a group of relatives near the long table when Sandra came and sat beside me. She had been talking to our Aunt Renate and 2 cousins, and there was a comfortable audience around us, maybe 8 or 10 people within easy earshot. She started talking about the kids, about how much they were growing, how well Maya was doing in school, how Petra had started a drawing class. All true things. All good things. I let her talk. Then she said, almost casually, that it had been a tough few months financially. She said the car had needed work and the summer had been expensive with the kids. She said she was grateful she had a brother who understood what family meant. I said nothing. I watched her. She said that some people in the family were more generous than others. She said it with a small laugh, glancing around the table in a way that included everyone in the conversation. She said that Marcus, meaning me, had always understood that the kids came first. Somebody at the table said something like, "That is what good uncles are for." And Sandra, with her glass in her hand and her audience in place, said it. She said, "A good uncle does not ask for receipts." She was looking at me when she said it. It was a warning dressed as a compliment. It was a public declaration of the terms she had decided we operated under. It was her way of saying, in front of everyone, that any attempt by me to question her use of the money would mark me as a bad uncle. A petty uncle. An uncle who did not really care about the children, only about the money. It was the most confident thing she had said to me in 6 months. I looked at her for a moment. I let the silence sit just long enough that it was noticeable. Then I said, "Funny you should mention that." I reached into my bag, which was sitting beside my chair, and I took out the blue folder. I set it on the table in front of me, and I opened it. And I did not raise my voice, and I did not look angry, and I spoke in the same tone I would use to explain a train schedule. I said I had been keeping track of some things over the past several months. I said I was not angry. I said I just wanted to make sure we were all on the same page about what had actually happened with the money I had transferred. Sandra's smile did not disappear immediately. It flickered. She said with a small laugh that this was not the time or place. I said, actually, it was a perfect time because there were people here who loved those kids, and I thought they would want to know. I put the first sheet on the table. It was the list of transfers, dates, amounts, stated purposes. I had printed it clearly, large enough to read from across the table. 11 transfers over 8 months, a total of just over 1,400 euros. I said, "This is what I sent. Now let me show you what it was supposedly for." I put down the school's supply list for Maya's class. I had highlighted the line that said, "All materials provided." I said, "The science fair project." Maya did it with school materials. The school website confirmed this. Sandra's glass was still in her hand. She set it down. I put down the subsidy program information. I said, "The school trip was free for Maya's class through a subsidy." I confirmed this with the school. I put down the transcript of Petra's voice message about the sports shoes. I said, "Petra told me herself she did not get new shoes. She said her shoes were fine." The table was very quiet. My Aunt Renate was looking at Sandra. The 2 cousins were looking at the papers. My father had come over from the grill. I had not planned that, but I did not stop. I said, "I am not saying the money went to something terrible. I do not know exactly where it went. But I know it did not go where I was told it was going. And I know that matters, because I was giving that money for Maya and Petra, not for anything else. Sandra stood up. She said this was insane. She said I was humiliating her in front of the family. She said she could not believe I would do this to her. She said I had no idea how hard it was to raise 2 kids on their income. She said she had done her best. She said I'd always had it easier than her. She said a lot of things, and they came out in a rush, and none of them addressed a single piece of paper on the table. I let her finish. Then I put down the last thing in the folder. It was Petra's accidental voice message, transcribed. The one where Petra said she did not think I was actually busy. She thought Mama just did not want me to come. I said, this is the part that actually hurt me. Not the money. This. Sandra looked at the paper. She looked at me. Something in her face changed. The performance quality went out of it. What was left was something more complicated, and I did not feel triumphant looking at it. I just felt tired. My mother had come to stand near the table. She picked up the transfer list and looked at it for a long moment. She did not say anything. She put it back down. My father put his hand on my shoulder. He did not say anything either. Sandra took her glass and walked away from the table. Dirk followed her. I heard them talking in low voices near the garden wall, but I could not hear what they said. I closed the folder. I put it back in my bag. Maya was across the garden with the other kids, still playing, not watching any of this. Petra was sitting on the grass near the garden wall, pulling at a dandelion, and she looked up once at the table and then went back to the dandelion. She had not heard. I was glad she had not heard. The rest of the afternoon continued. The food kept appearing. My father burned a third sausage and said it was caramelized. My cousin's daughter fell asleep in a lawn chair, and someone put a paper plate over her face as a sun hat and left it there for 20 minutes. Life continued in the way life does, even when something has just ended. Sandra and Dirk left early. Sandra did not say goodbye to me. I did not expect her to. Before she left, she went to the kids and told them it was time to go. Maya protested in the automatic way kids protest. Petra came and found me first and hugged me around the middle and said, "Bye, Uncle Marcus," and I held on for a second longer than usual. I watched them leave through the garden gate. Sandra did not look back. I want to tell you what happened in the weeks after, because the barbecue was not the end. It was more like the moment a door swings open, and you can finally see what is on the other side. Sandra did not call me for 2 weeks. That was the longest she had gone without contact in over a year. When she finally called, her voice was different, quieter. She said she wanted to talk. I said, okay. She said she was sorry for how the conversation had gone at the barbecue. I noticed she did not say she was sorry for what she had done. She said it had been a hard time and she had made some mistakes with how she managed things. I said I understood that. I said I was not interested in punishing her. I said, but I am going to change how I help from now on. She waited. I said, I am not going to send money to you for the kids anymore. If Maya or Petra need something specific, I want to know about it directly from them, or I want to get it myself. I will take them shopping. I will pay for things at the source. I will pay the school directly for any fees. I'm happy to do all of that, but I'm not going to transfer money to your account and trust that it reaches them. She said that was insulting. I said, maybe, but it is what I am comfortable with. She said I had no right to go around her as their parent. I said I was not going around her. I was just choosing how I spent my own money. I said she could not stop me from buying her children's school supplies or taking them to a bookstore. There was a long silence. Then she said, fine. That fine held a lot of things. It held anger, and it held defeat, and it held something that might have been, somewhere underneath all of it, a small amount of relief. I cannot be sure about that last part, but I heard it. The visits changed. I started coming to the house directly, which Sandra had been subtly discouraging for months with scheduling conflicts and bad timing. I called Maya and Petra on the family chat without going through Sandra first. I took them to the bookstore twice, once in September and once in October, and I let them each pick 3 books, and I paid at the register, and I watched their faces when they carried their bags out to the car. In November, I took Maya to a science exhibit she had mentioned wanting to see. We spent 3 hours there. She explained things to me with the absolute confidence of a 10-year-old who has decided she knows more than adults. And she was usually right. On the way home, she said, Uncle Marcus, why do you not come around more? And I said, I am going to. I am going to come around a lot more. She said, good. She said Petra missed me. She said she missed me too. But she said it in the way 9-year-olds say things they find slightly embarrassing, which is to say quickly and while looking out the window. I thought about the blue folder in my bag. I thought about Sandra's face when I put those papers on the table. I thought about the voice message from Petra that I had listened to 3 times sitting at my kitchen table, coffee going cold beside me. I had been used. That was true. But I had also been right about the kids. They were worth it. Not the money, the attention, the time, the presence, the thing that could not be transferred into an account and spent on something else. Sandra and I have a relationship now that is cooler than it used to be. We are polite at family events. We do not talk on the phone the way we used to. She has not asked me for money since the barbecue. I do not know if that is because she is ashamed or because she knows it will not work, or both. I do not spend much time thinking about it. What I spend time thinking about is Maya's face in the science exhibit, pointing at a diagram of the solar system and telling me something I did not know. And Petra's voice in that accidental message, small and certain, saying she did not think I was actually busy. She was right. I was not busy. I was just being managed. I am not being managed anymore. This past spring, Petra turned 8. I took her to the art supply store and told her to pick out whatever she wanted for her birthday. She spent 45 minutes in the colored pencil section. She held up individual pencils to the light to check the color. She was completely serious about it. She picked out a set of 64 pencils and a sketchbook with thick paper and a small set of watercolors. And when we got to the register, she looked up at me and said, "Is this too much?" I said, "Petra, you have been underfunded for 2 years. Get the pencils." She did not understand what underfunded meant. She laughed anyway. She carried the bag herself all the way to the car and held it on her lap the whole drive home. I did not transfer anything to anyone. I just paid for the pencils. The blue folder is still in my desk drawer. I do not need it anymore. I kept it because there is something in me that needs to know it is there. The evidence that I was not imagining things, that I was right to pay attention, that the quiet, careful work of watching and waiting and collecting the truth was worth doing. Someday I will probably throw it away. But not yet. Not quite yet. That is the whole story. Not complicated in the end. A man who loved his nieces, a sister who figured out how to turn that love into a resource, and a blue folder of papers that said, "I see what you are doing, and I have been paying attention. The money is gone. I made peace with that. You do not get back what someone takes from you by pretending it did not happen, but you also do not have to keep paying the same toll forever." I closed that account. I opened a different one. And somewhere in a desk drawer, there is a blue folder. And in it is a transcript of a 6-year-old saying her shoes were fine.